Good morning to everyone, and welcome to Saturday Keynote, Beloved Birth 50 by 50, an invitation to courageous collective action. We are honored to have Leseliey Welch here to help us kick off Birth Center Week 2025. Leseliey Welch is a public health strategist, social entrepreneur, writer, and professional dreamer whose guide value is love. As the founder of Birth Detroit and Birth Center Equity, her work is grounded in making communities stronger, healthier, and more free, starting with ensuring all people have access to all birth options. Birth Detroit opened its freestanding community birth center in 2024. And Birth Equity is a national effort to invest in Black, Indigenous, and people of color center birth centers at scale to make birth centers a real option in all communities. Leseliey has 2 decades of leadership experience in the city, state, and national organizations, including serving as Deputy Director of Public Health for the City of Detroit. Leseliey earned her bachelor's degree of Women's Studies and a master's in Public Health and a master's in Business Administration from the University of Michigan, and is an Aspen Institute Ascent Fellow. Please give a warm welcome to Leseliey.
Again, thank you so much for having me here at AABC, for starting your day with me. I am excited and honored to launch Beloved Birth 50 by 50 here with all of you. I share with you all here on this slide. I was recently at the Aspen Institute at Vision Exchange. And one of the quotes from an icon I love, bell hooks that I walk by every day on my way to my sessions was, what we cannot imagine cannot come into being. What we cannot imagine cannot come into being. And so I start this day and this launch with these words and with the faces of other icons, ancestors, midwives, mentors, colleagues, dreammates, and friends who have envisioned new realities and brought new things into being. And I honor them, and you'll see some of them in my presentation. One of them is Ann Mosley, who's the Vice President at the Aspen Institute and founder of the fellowship that I'm a part of. And this year at Vision Exchange, she started her talk by saying that now is the time. Now is the time to state clearly what we are for, to see clearly our shared promise, purpose, and power. Now is the time to state clearly what we are for, not what we are against, not what we don't want. To see clearly our shared vision, purpose, and power. We don't have to agree on all things to agree on this one thing. Everything and nothing. One of the things I think folks need to know as you listen today is where I'm rooted from beyond the bio. And what they tell us at Aspen as Ascend Fellows is that leadership has everything to do with us and nothing to do with us. In Lucille Clifton's words, as a poet, I love her, she says, any stone can sing. Anyone can lead. Any of us have the power to lead. What I've learned, though, is that some of us have more audacity than others. Some of us have, we just have or have access to a courage and a vision that comes beyond us. And we see before others see. We share despite our fear. And we risk what other people can't or what other people won't. Right? And as a Black queer mama, you see I made my own acronym. As a Black queer mama, I truly believe that every baby is my baby. I stand here having experienced the joys and griefs of pregnancy and childbirth personally. I've had a preterm baby. I've experienced pregnancy loss. I've had a rainbow baby that I didn't think was possible. I've been with my brother when my nephew was born and died the same day in a local Detroit hospital. We are the statistics that we talk about. And every baby is my baby. And every woman is my sister. And I truly believe that. And that guides this work for me today. And it makes the numbers not numbers. And it also puts the fire in my belly. There's an urgency to it. And I know that change happens in proportion to our courage and our tenacity, our ability to put forth a vision and to believe in it and to hold it even when people are saying, no, that's not possible. People told us we could never have a birth center in Detroit, and now what do we have? Some of the folks, yes. Some of the very first funders we went to support us in our endeavor told me no. Those same funders are our biggest funders today, right? And I welcome them. Whenever you come along, whenever you see what I see, I welcome you. Last two things, grace is where love meets imperfection. Leaders are not perfect. One of the things that scares people away from leading is the idea that you will be under a microscope, you will be under scrutiny, people will love you or hate you or criticize you and all the things, right? And so it makes some people shy away or stand back. Our babies, our families, the children of our future cannot afford for any of us to sit back, no matter what. And then despair and division, those are tools of silence. Instead, we need faith. We need faith, we need love, and those are the values that inspire bold action. What we know and what is behind our work at BCE and what is the foundation of 11 Birth 50 by 50 is all things I know that you in this room know, right? So transforming birth culture and equitable access to midwifery care, it requires coordinated efforts across sectors. So many people say, we need more midwives. Absolutely, we need more midwives, but also we need the public health people to do their jobs. They're my people, so I can say that. We need the insurance payers to do their jobs. We need healthcare finance to do its job. We need everything to mobilize to support midwifery the way that our system has mobilized to support medicalized birth in this country. Community-led, culturally reverent, not culturally tolerant, not culturally, you can come here if you want, but like culturally, we love you and we see you. Birth centers are essential for addressing disparity. Sustained investment is needed across the board for birth centers, not just Black, Indigenous, and people of color birth centers, all of us need it. Joy, abundance, and liberation will inspire broader support for this work than the death and dying talk that continues. And public and private partnerships are critical to community birth infrastructure. At BCE this past April, we celebrated 5 years of Birth Center Equity. Birth Center Equity was started in April 2020 by Nashira Burrell and I in pandemic. We started with simply wanting to write an article about the challenges we were facing opening our birth centers in Boston, and we wrote this article in Rewire News, and it just took off. People then began to give money, funders and donors came along. Our first grants were rapid response grants to birth centers of color that were trying to stay open during the pandemic. We evolved to Open Doors Initiative grants to help birth center leaders and owners get over milestones or gaps to opening their doors or keeping them open. We had 14 or so birth center leaders on our first Zoom call. Today, there are 58 leaders of color, either with their birth centers open or currently serving their communities with easy access care, doula care, childbirth education, and working to finance and fund and build their birth centers. We had our first in-person gathering another one this December. Birth Center Week started 3 years ago, and last year, with the support of AABC, we received a congressional resolution for Birth Center Week. And as we move now into the future, two things that BCE is doing. One is our Birth and Beloved Economy Business Studio, where we're using everything we've learned for the last 5 years to create business solutions to the challenges we see our birth centers facing. Right? How do we help midwives who want to help meet the non-clinical demands of birth center development and do it in a data-informed way and culturally sensitive and affirming way? And then finally, what we're here for today is Beloved Birth 50 by 50. Here's what our network looks like today. I tell people that BCE is an offering and an invitation. This is a map of Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led birth centers across the country. The white ones are open and providing birth center birth today, and the darker ones are developing. It's not an exhaustive list, though, because it's not a requirement for anyone to be a part of BCE. It's simply an invitation and an offering. And we're in 26 states and Puerto Rico and counting. We seek to change the conversation, right? One of the things that we did in public health that, it got us here, but it was a mistake. It's like we focused a lot on individual choice and individual behavior. But people can only make the choices that they have. And what we have is a system where we have disparate outcomes and we have disparate options for care. And we all deserve access to all safe birth options, right? And so we intend and we hold moving from a conversation of fear to safety, talking about solutions, as Leseliey Welch talks about being solutionary, right? From scarcity to abundance. Our healthcare expenditure in this country is massive. There is no reason why anyone sitting in this room today should struggle to have to provide care to their communities. It's simply ridiculous. And our birth centers are more than just a place to give birth. They're the beginning of family. Right? And then from oppression to liberation, and I define oppression as Bell Hooks defines oppression as like simply not having choices to make. Right? Everybody deserves to have choices to make and have agency in their lives, and what we have the agency to do is to reimagine and rebuild the systems of care. The system we have today is working how it's built to work. It's a little counterintuitive, and we need a new one. And so, critical truths that you all know, our birth care system is failing families. That's a complete statement. Midwives, all of you are already leading the way toward better outcomes, and you're delivering expert, compassionate care in the face of systemic barriers and mounting challenges. And as I said before, you cannot and you should not be expected to do it alone. And so one of the questions we asked last year at a narrative strategy retreat at Birth Center Equity was, how do we craft a narrative strategy powerful enough to shift hearts, minds, and resources toward a world where every community has access to midwifery care? And we spent some days together talking about this. We had a narrative strategist from another field who's phenomenal with us, Laura Hughes. And these three themes came back. One is solidarity. Shared goals and mutual support can bind us. Birth is a common denominator we all share. We have all been born. And all of us who have had babies want our babies born safely and surrounded by love. Abundance, enoughness, and winning. While Birth Center Equity is founded to invest in Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led birth centers, this work, Beloved Birth 50 by 50, is for everyone. It's like the airport, the airplane, you put your oxygen on mask first, right? You put yours on first. And then love. Love, as I like to define it, is Martin Luther King Jr.'s definition of love, as an understanding, creative, and redemptive goodwill for all people, no matter what, right? And so love is a journey to perfect ourselves, our communities, our world, to one where every person can birth safely, in dignity, in love. How to make infrastructure change sexy, exciting, and irresistible. I taught women's and gender studies and public health for 20 years, and this is a thing. Like, you can know things, you can have data, but you have to say it in a way that people understand and feel inspired by. I tell people in my training, I speak feminism, I speak business and finance, I speak public health. I'm learning to speak birth centers. And we define beloved birth, right, as a shift from a medicalized birth culture that we have today, a shift from a birth culture that's physician-centric to one that is family-centered, a shift from a birth culture that is physician-led to one that is midwife-led with physician cooperation and collaboration. One that is not hospital anchored anymore, but instead is community held. And a system that is not rooted in hierarchy in any way. So not a hierarchy among families and not a hierarchy among providers and credentials, but one where all people are respected and valued and all folks, all providers can practice to the extent of their credentials and their licenses. So this slide, I'm going to do it one more time because this is my wife's contribution. And this is important in terms of understanding the roots of the strategy. So one of the questions that I was asked very early on as we were testing the idea of beloved birth 50 by 50 is like, what is that? Is it just that because it sounds good? No. It's that because it's actually rooted in something, right? And one of the things it's rooted in at its core is movement strategy, and in particular, Norma Wong is a Zen Buddhist activist and just phenomenal leader who, during the COVID pandemic, led what was called collective acceleration workshops with leaders across the country. And she recently wrote a book called The No Think Works, which I highly recommend. I'm a big nerd, so if you need a reading list, I have that for you. And she says that no leap occurs without leaving the safety of what you know and leaning into a constantly changing unknown. Leap strategy means casting back from the story of the thriving future you want and building the just enough infrastructure to support a critical mass of entrapments. This is different than a lot of folks do problem solving today, right? A lot of folks start at the level of the problem. Norma taught me to start at the horizon. She also talks about what's called collective acceleration. Collective acceleration explores what is necessary to move from conflict, from collapse, from despair, to interdependence and possibility. A lot of folks right now today are in conflict, collapse, and despair. And we need something that's going to move us all to interdependence and possibility. We need to create solutions and conditions for the kind of evolution that resets who we need to be, right? That resets who we need to be for that baby right there who's talking to us. What kind of world do we want them to have? And so we have an unprecedented opportunity today, particularly like the alchemy of this time is ripe for it. It's ripe for collective acceleration. Unprecedented opportunity to leap forward while connecting us toward mutuality, healing, and reconnection. Again, we don't have to agree on everything to agree on this one thing. What would it be like if we lived in a world by 2050 where 50% of our babies in this country came into the world with the care of midwives? And those of us who know our history know that this was once the case. Those of us who really, really know our history know that it was intentionally, deliberately changed. so those of us who are audacious like me know that. That means we can intentionally and deliberately change it again. The goal of Beloved Birth 50 by 50 doesn't just sound good, it's data informed, right? It's data informed by our 5 years of experience with birth center equity, but also by the decades of research on midwifery care, on community birth, by the wisdom of centuries. It's well thought. There's a timeline and phases for my public health people and data people out there. I got that for you. It's LEAP strategy. There are 6 infrastructural pathways. I wouldn't be a responsible strategist if there weren't pathways, right? And it's grounded in a love ethic. And then the quote that I grounded myself in while my dreammates and I built Birth Detroit is this one from Mediba, and it always seems impossible until it's done. And so for a lot of folks, it seems impossible. And that's okay, because you're gonna come along as you see the goal come along. The origins and the goals, right? We shared the origins and the definition of beloved birth that we're working with. For the goal, later last year, we were at our Birth Center Equity Team Retreat. We were at Leseliey, and Kimberly had invited folks from their community to come have dinner with our team. And so we were sitting in a circle, enjoying pizza and wine, and talking about the challenges of our work, or wishes and dreams and so forth. And one of the things that came up is like, what would it be like if we had a simple, unifying, common North Star? What would it be like if there was one thing all of us in the birth ecosystem could agree on, no matter our backgrounds, our value systems, or how we're working toward that goal? And that is where 50 by 50 was born. I walked away from that conversation, literally walking out of the door, Kendra's facing my hand, I was like, what if it was 50%? Right? What if it was 50%? What if we could get to 50%? And why 50%? 50% because the conservative estimate is that 60% of U.S. pregnancies could safely be supported by midwives in a community setting. Nothing you don't know, right? Right now, less than 15% of our pregnancies are supported by midwives. And in countries that know better and do better than us, more than 75% of their pregnancies are supported by midwives. 50% should be the least we can do for our babies and our families. 6 pathways. Still working to make infrastructure sexy, exciting, and irresistible. Finance midwifery. We have to make midwifery a top public and private financing priority. This is why it takes more than midwives to move it. Those of us who make decisions in finance, we need to be on board, right? We need to grow birth centers. Right now, birth centers are the only healthcare facilities that center the midwifery model of care. People should be looking at you all for how to do it right. We have to expand our midwifery workforce, and not only expand it, but it should be the backbone of our birth care workforce, which will take an abundance of resources and effort. Center midwifery and integrated care as optimal care across birth settings. So the other thing that is important about this goal, it is across birth settings. 50% of births across birth settings. Birth center, hospitals, and home. It's for every single person, everywhere. Strengthen policies and regulations to support widespread access to midwifery care, and then moving the hearts and minds of folks. When we look at some of our great movements in this country, and some of them that have been very strategically organized, there are always multiple layers of strategy. Not only from our policies and regulations, but down to what you see on Netflix and how things are portrayed. We need everybody for this goal. Phases, right? How can this happen? Is it really possible in 25 years? And why 25 years? Let's start with that. Why 25 years? Why 2050, not 2030, not 2040? Well, because a lot of reasons. One, it's like, certainly this goal will not happen in anybody's grant cycle. It will not happen in any one person's political term, or even two. And it will take some foundation setting. It will take like a spark, igniting that collective acceleration. And then really, really evolving so our systems actually shift and change. And that's a long haul. That means that some of us in this room, we might not see 2050. One of the reasons I work so hard and fast is because I know I'm not promised tomorrow, but I know I have a purpose. Right? And one of the prayers I say every day, because I have two kids, 19 and 11, is like, may I be the mother they need me to be, and the leader their children and their children's children need me to be. Right? And so if we work with that timeline, what do we seed today to create that tomorrow for them? And so with that in mind, let's see if my interactive feature actually works. I invite you to take out your phones and to imagine that it is 2050. Imagine how we met our goal. Imagine that here in the US, 50% of babies are born in the care of midwives. And so hopefully you see a Menti screen, and it's asking you to imagine this with me, and it's giving you an opportunity to put in some words of your own. So I see it populating on the other screen. If folks have had an opportunity to take the picture, I'll show you what folks are saying. Imagining it's 2050, we've met our goal, and 50% of babies are being born in the care of midwives. What do we see? So we have nurturing, graceful, joyful birth stories, healthy families, abundance, greener, light, connected, attached, peaceful, perfection, resilience, sweet, inclusive, respectful, healing. Finally, whole, softer, right? The idea that birth can be gentle, graceful, nurturing, less fear, more power, right? Inclusive, matriarchal, justice, excellent, connected. Leseliey Boggs, who I have pictured here, is an ancestor now, but was a local Detroit labor activist, her and her husband Jimmy Boggs, and my youngest child went to the Boggs School, which was so lovely when we were near the city. And when I was teaching, I would take University of Michigan students to do public health work in Detroit. And when she was alive, she would literally take the time to welcome my group of 15 students to sit at her feet in her living room. And she would talk to them about her journey and her work. And one of the things that she says that I always hold is that you cannot change any society unless you take responsibility for it. Unless you see yourself as belonging to it and responsible for changing it. Now, the thing about looking at society is that includes even the people who don't look like, think like, and act like you. That includes even the people you might not like so much. Right? That includes even the people that you might not even want to see them 100 feet away. But we're still responsible for each other. And so when we talk about resistance is good, right? Resistance usually involves mobilizing only us, whatever your us is, right? The people who already believe what you believe and think what you think. Resistance allows us to create microcosms of what we envision. But when we seek to mobilize the whole, is when we truly transform and create new futures. When we embrace responsibility for the whole and seek to transform the whole. And so for Beloved Birth 50 by 50, what we aim to do, and my narrative strategist, Julie, I shout her out here because she's amazing. She's one of the founding volunteers of Birth Center Equity. She is not very visible in this work, but she's amazing. And she says Birth Center Equity seeks to spark change that we are a part of and that expands exponentially beyond us. Today, what we're doing is launching a large, energized, and unified movement. We are working to create vibrant and expanded pathways for everyday people to learn about and take action to support midwifery. This means everybody from the teacher to the person who is babysitting your kids, to the person who picks up the garbage, to the person at the grocery store, to the people in politics and leadership positions. One of the things I talked about with my sister-in-law is like, when you have career day, do you invite a midwife? One of the very first lists of top 10 actions I've made is for our philanthropic partners, and it includes actions they can take within their organizations, outside their organizations, and with their external colleagues. Like, sometimes we have to give people a list of things to do, right? And so we're giving people a list of things to do, a list of things to do for people who are ready to act, to finance midwifery, to grow birth centers, to expand the midwifery workforce, to center midwifery and integrated care, to strengthen policies and regulations. And this is really important also because I know there are folks here who want to start birth centers who live in states that aren't birth center friendly. I lived in a state that was not birth center friendly. And so we made it birth center friendly. Dr. Stephanie Mitchell lived in a state that's not midwife and birth center friendly. She's making it a state that will be midwife and birth center friendly. Right? Any stone is And so today I hope that all of you will sing with me and take this pledge. This is the QR code for the Beloved Birth 50 by 50 pledge. And you can take out your phones and you can be the very first to sign up. The pledge opened this morning. The pledge is super duper simple. It is, I pledge to support the Beloved Birth 50 by 50 goal with my voice, my ideas, and my actions. I pledge to support the Beloved Birth 50 by 50 goal with my voice, my ideas, and my actions. I invite all of you to take a moment to take the pledge today. The QR code will take you right to our form. If you go to Beloved Birth 50 by 50, it'll take you to the website that explains more about the strategy and where we're moving and how we're moving. The second thing you could do today is champion a pathway. You all are exemplars, whether people see you yet or not, right? If you have innovations and models and ideas across pathways, make them known. Beloved Birth 50 by 50 is not Leslie's thing. It's not Birth Center Equity's thing. It is your thing. It's everybody's thing to take action on immediately. And share it. Share the pledge. Share the pledge during Birth Center Week. Birth Center Week launches on the 14th. It's 14th through the 20th. I'll be launching Birth Center Week with a conversation with Tatiana Ali from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who I just love. I had a little fangirl moment, so I'm going to try to be cool on Monday. But join us for our conversation to launch Birth Center Week. And in closing, a couple things. This is a picture from Birth the Train when we were building our birth center. Okay. When we were building our birth center and the walls were going up, we decided to go and write our prayers and affirmations into the walls of the building. So our team, our board, our families, our children were invited to come, and we wrote our prayers into the walls of our birth center. This one is from Mary Demery, who is a young woman who came to me in the beginning of our planning stages for Birth to True. She was a volunteer on the finance committee. And this was 5 years ago, and Mary said, I'm gonna have my baby at Birth to True. Mary said, I'm gonna work for you at Birth to True. I didn't even have a Birth to True. I said, okay, Mary. And Mary went from a volunteer on our fundraising team to our first finance assistant to grants and programs director. Mary and I, together with Leseliey, who is in the room, raised $4 million for our capital campaign for Birth to True. And just a little over a month ago, Mary had her baby at Birth to True. And so I think that most all people will want to go to a place where they're loved, where there are people who are rooting for them, and where they feel safe. And I don't think anyone with a heart would forsake anyone else that thing. And so Bell Hooks in her infinite wisdom also says, to choose love is to go against the prevailing values of our culture. The prevailing voices of today are not talking about love. And as long as those of us who do believe in love are silent about it, they win. And so we have to talk about it. We have to be about it. We have to use our voices, ideas, and our actions to make it so. And Alice Walker, who I also love, says, surely the earth will be saved by all the people who insist on love. And so I invite you to insist on love with me and to join me in beloved birth.